Hello guys, welcome back to ESENtaxa. Andrea Papito here, as always, to explain a new topic about taxes if you want to move in a specific country. Here we talk a lot about Italy, and we are the #1 channel of Italian tax optimization, Italian tax strategies if you want to move in this specific country. In this specific video, I want to remark the importance of having a tax simulation, having a tax planification, a tax strategy before moving to Italy. Is extremely important, especially because Italy has several tax regimes, several tax schemes, that has to be cross-checked together and see if your personal situation makes sense in this specific country or not. We help people to optimize their taxes. We help people to apply for those tax regimes if the person, for instance, that person has all the requirements to apply for those regimes, because those regimes are extremely favorable, but in exchange they require you to have some specific criteria and some requirements. Okay, so we need to check them. And here I want to explain today which are the most classical error and mistakes of a lot of clients. That with them we had basically several calls in which they were upset because they discover after 1 year living in Italy that they missed the opportunity to apply for those tax regime. And this is the first classical mistake, the first classical error. So moving to a country without a tax strategy in advance, without checking with a tax advisor which are the benefit. Because most of those tax regimes, all the points in common of these tax regimes, this tax benefit, is that they all require to be a new tax resident, somebody that moves to that country for the first time. If you move and you behave like a normal taxpayer without even considering to apply for those tax regimes, then once the first year is passed, you get disqualified by almost all of them. This is the classical situation, for example, with the regime for pensioners. So you have the famous 7% flat tax on all your foreign income as a pensioner. You can qualify for this tax regime if you're already a pensioner moving to Italy, because I saw cases where the person moved to Italy working, doing something, then he stopped work because he was receiving, this is an example of receiving the pension from US, from United States, but the pension was given after 1 year of living in Italy. So he didn't came in Italy as a pensioner, but he became pensioner after 1 year. And basically this disqualifies the person from the 7% pensioner tax regime, because it requires you to stay in Italy since the beginning, from the first tax year, as somebody that receives a foreign pension. This, for example, is one of the main requirements of this tax regime. The other classical tax regime is not applying the impatriate regime, which is the classical. Why most of the people, they simply don't want to have any tax strategy, they don't ask any tax advices in advance before moving to Italy. They simply remember to do this after the tax year after. So, and then it's too late, because when you close the tax year, which is a span of time, a lot of time from January to December, you cannot do anything, you cannot amend anything, you cannot change your situation is done, and then you have to declare everything without the possibility to do some adjustment, almost impossible. So most of the cases it's too late. And the classical situation is when you want to apply for the impatriate regime just because you ever heard about somebody talking, some colleagues at work, some friends, they were telling, look, do you know that in Italy exists the impatriate regime, but you never heard about it? And then you browse online and you find us on internet. This is the classical example, classical scenario. You find us on internet, you find ESENtaxa online that explains everything about the impatriate regime, but you already lived in Italy for since 1 year, 2 years, and it's too late to apply for the impatriate regime, because the impatriate regime also requires you to be for the first time in the country. It requires you a famous genuine repatriation, the famous link criteria, which is extremely important, and it's something that we analyze in our consultancy or in our online course, which is basically the eligibility test for the unwanted regime. So if you are somebody that wants to spare money, you don't want to invest money in any tax strategy, in any tax planning, in any tax simulations to understand exactly if that country makes sense or not for you, then you will risk to have your money gone in taxes because simply you didn't think to invest a small amount of money to spare in taxes thousands and thousands and thousands of euros, okay? So these are the two classical examples. In the description below the video, we offer this service. We offer the tax simulation, 1 hour call, 20 minutes call. We also have added a new offer, a new package in which we offer 2 hours call plus tax simulation all together in case you have a lot of type of incomes, a lot of type of businesses that you want to run in parallel while you're moving to Italy, while you wish to relocate to Italy. So this is, of course, if your situation is more complex, we have also a package to help you to understand, to improve the tax situation and to check together how we can squeeze your taxes if you want to move to Italy and if you can apply for one of those tax regimes. We have also the regime of high net worth individual, in which basically you can ask an advanced tax ruling to the Italian tax agency. A lot of people are not aware of it. And this is another classical mistake. They think, okay, I want to know if I can run a business abroad while I'm living in Italy, but how can I describe the situation and make sure that nobody in the future can come after me, make a tax audit, and then ask me back the money because I disqualify from this tax regime? Well, you can do it through our service, which allows you to prepare this tax advance ruling to the Italian tax agency, which bound you for 15 years. It means that for 15 years, nobody's gonna bother you living in Italy. No tax functionary will check you your income that you have generated abroad, okay? So this is another situation. Another thing that a lot of people are not aware of, and they make this is another big mistake. I've seen it a lot of time in our tax consultancies, is when you can stay in certain situation living in Italy tax-free completely for almost 2 years. Okay, so there are situations in which you don't even need to prepare any tax file return if you want to live in Italy for a short period of time. And this short period of time can be almost 2 years. Of course, here we need to discuss how you want to live in Italy, which are the details of this situation, but a lot of people are not aware of that you can stay up to 2 years, basically living in Italy tax-free. Which means, what does it mean tax-free? It means that even if you live in the country, even if you live in Italy, you can still run your business in your country of origin. You can still pay taxes in your country of origin. Maybe you're coming from a tax haven country and you want to just enjoy living in Italy for 1 year, 2 year maximum. And then basically there is the chance of not pay any taxes at all. So don't need to apply for any tax regime. Do not file any tax return, anything. And this is a very peculiar scenario because there are in certain situations we can leverage from the ties breakers rules. And what does it mean? What does it mean? It means that in the Convention to avoid a double taxation between Italy and certain countries, there is a paragraph called tiebreaker rules, which are basically allow us to understand in which country you are really tax resident. And in most of the cases, in certain cases, even if you pass more than 6 months in Italy, if you have more ties and business and the center of your business, the center of your affair, it's abroad, you can still stay in the Italian territory for more than 6 months and you won't be considered Italian tax resident. But these things are something that needs to be discussed in the consultancy. So in the description below the video, you will find our calendar link in which you can pick up our type of a consultancy, 20 minutes, 60 minutes, 120 minutes, or simply a tax simulation. and understand if you fall in this situation, if you fall in high net worth individual tax regime, if you fall in impatriator tax regime, in 7% if you're a pensioner, or also if you can apply the forfait regime 5%. Or simply you want to move to Italy, you need to open as SRL, a company structure, SRL, and you don't apply for any of those situations here. And we need to check how to optimize an SRL company structure, an Italian company structure, and try to squeeze the tax as much as possible, because the SRL, unfortunately, are quite expensive to maintain and high. They, let's say, oblige you to pay quite a lot of taxes. And then, last but not least, it's running your foreign companies from Italy. Okay, and I'm talking about your LLC, LTD, or your company in Germany, your company in France, your company in Estonia, wherever place your company is incorporated. And in certain scenarios, you can run your business from Italy with a company incorporated abroad, but the majority of our clients, unfortunately, are not following this case, because they are the single man business administrator of the company. They own all the shares of the company. They try to run the business from Italy as a place of effective management, and this is completely against the law. Okay, so each scenario must be carefully checked, carefully understood before moving to Italy, because otherwise you might risk to lose a lot of money. You might either lose the opportunity to apply for one of the tax regimes, or basically you apply for the wrong tax regime, which is even worse, because then you have to give back all the money and then pay fine and interest to the Italian tax agency. So we are here to help you to understand which is the correct path tax-wise, especially if you want to move to Italy. If you like this kind of content, as always, let notification bell like button and subscribe the channel to help us grow and release for free this kind of content. See you to the next video. Bye.